All right, everybody. I think we're going to get started. I know there's some still people getting through security, but in the interest of everyone's time and the times that were posted, we do want to get started. It's already a little after 7, so thank you everybody who is here, and thank you everybody, and I apologize for those still walking in. My name is Don Heckelmoser. I am a board member with the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce and the chair of the Legislative and Government Affairs Committee. So it's my honor to be here and welcome everybody and do some minor introductions. I want to start by thanking and introducing Lauren Small, the Executive Director of the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce. Lauren put in a lot of hard work to get us all here today. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters and their partnership and leadership through not only this experience, but through the many, many years of planning this event. It really is a great resource to have for all Lakewood voters. So thank you to the League of Women Voters. I would also like to thank all the candidates who were able to make it tonight. It's not an easy thing to do, so credit to all of you who are here and putting yourselves out there. So thank you to all the candidates. And my last duty is to introduce our moderator, Maria Shin. Maria is a lawyer, a business owner, and a longtime member of the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Don. Good evening. Welcome to the Lakewood Candidates Forum. Before I take my place at the podium and turn my back to you, I just wanted to go over some of the program ground rules so that we're all on the same page. The first thing I always like to ask is that you please silence your phones, your Apple Watches, Fitbits, whatever you have. And actually, I'm going to ask you to even put your phones away because there is no photography allowed and there's no video recording allowed. This program is being video recorded, and it will be posted on the Chamber's YouTube channel later this week. So if you'd like to watch it again, you can look at it on the Chamber's YouTube channel. Thank you. And now for some of the program rules. They are listed in your program if you received one coming in. As most of you probably know, questions will be taken from the audience, but please make sure and write your name on the question. I will not read the name, but you must have your name on the question for the panel to review your questions. So we do have a panel of 3 people that will review the questions and will bring them up to me for asking the candidates that will be seated at this table. In the spirit of fairness and impartiality, all candidates will be addressed by me as Mr. or Ms. as appropriate. If a person is currently serving as a public official, a candidate will not be referred to as such during this forum. Your participation in this forum does constitute your acceptance of these ground rules. And now I would like to announce some of the candidates that will be running this fall in Lakewood. When I call your name, I ask that you please stand. Candidates for mayor, Ms. Megan George and Mr. William Young. In Ward 1, running unopposed is Mr. Kyle Baker. Running unopposed in Ward 3 is Cindy Strebig. And running unopposed in Ward 4 is Cindy Marks. We have asked these candidates to be available after this program for any questions you may have for them. We ask that you please be respectful when someone is speaking, and there may be times where I ask you to hold your applause till everyone has answered the question. Now we will proceed to the candidate question and answer session. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an introduction, 1 minute to answer each question, and closing remarks of 2 minutes. So I would like to invite up front the candidates for City Council Ward 2, Mr. Mancini and Mr. Schachner. Good evening, Mr. Mancini and Mr. Schachner. Thank you for coming tonight. The first question submitted from the audience, and we will start with Mr. Schachner first.
Are we going to start with intros or?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I was so excited about getting questions from them. My apologies. So, Mr. Schachner, if you would please begin with your 2-minute introduction.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Jason Schachner, and it's been my honor to serve as your Ward 2 council member since 2020. And I'm running again to continue making Lakewood a place that serves and supports residents at all stages of your life, whether it's your first apartment, your new family, or you're retired. I want Lakewood to be a place where anybody could call it their forever home. And my background and experience really makes me the most suited to be able to reach that goal. Now, I spent the years in AmeriCorps Vista in Washington, D.C. before I came here to go to law school at Case Western University. And that's where I met my wife, Michelle, and 12 years later, we have a 2-year-old girl and another one on the way in January. Don't know if it's a boy or girl yet. But I was served as an assistant prosecuting attorney for Lake County for 7 years, where I spent the bulk of my time as in the felony unit, really doing all sorts of cases all the way up to aggravated murder. I'm currently an assistant law director for the city of Cleveland, where I advise council, the administration, and the various departments on the law and policy. I craft legislation. I represent the Department of Public Safety, Mayor's Office of Capital Projects, Civil Service Commission, and the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I use that knowledge and experience really to turn residents' ideas into concrete legislation and policy, from permitting beekeeping into planting of milkweed in Lakewood, to getting a crosswalk installed on Madison, to expanding outdoor dining options, to allowing for ADUs, accessory dwelling units, to protecting our residents from their lives being upended because they sought reproductive care. Now, I look forward to answering all your questions, and I really hope to earn your support this November. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schachner. And now Mr. Mancini.
Did I follow the instructions correctly? All right. And I assume I'm the only exception for the phone, right?
Oh, yes, you won't
Okay,
be
good.
taking photographs, I'm sure.
Good, good. So Maria and everybody here today, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. My name is Anthony Mancini. I'm running for City Council, Ward 2, as you know. I'm a proud Lakewood resident, 10 years. I'm a graduate of St. Edward High School in 2016. I graduated from the University of Kentucky with a bachelor's in history in 2020. I'm a devout Catholic and a parishioner at St. Luke the Evangelist. I've been with that parish since I came back from college, so it's going on 3 years now. And I'm running on the issues of expediting development of the old Lakewood Hospital plot, empowering small businesses, and advocating for county property tax relief, and many other things that I've heard from residents in my ward on the campaign trail. So the way I like to attack problems and life in general is with a sense of practicality, personal relationships with those I'm working with, and above all, service to others. And I tend to use these when I get elected to council, if I get elected to council. My capacity to serve comes from a young adult community I started in Lakewood, or at St. Luke over 2 years ago now. With the group, I focus on personal relationship with the group members, but I put a strong emphasis on them being able to cultivate relationships among themselves. In my efforts to make this a good community at St. Luke, it's seen over 230 different attendees at our weekly meeting, successful service opportunities for people, and several marriage engagements. So I believe Lakewood, albeit a bigger community, much bigger community, would benefit from a public
Thank you,
servant.
Mr. Mancini.
Okay.
The 2 minutes has elapsed.
Would benefit from a public servant.
Thank you. Since Mr. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. So since Mr. Schachner went first with introductions, I will ask the first question of Mr. Mancini. And you mentioned something about the Lakewood plot. And actually, one of the questions from the audience is, what is your vision for the vacant land where the Lakewood Hospital once stood? Mr. Mancini.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. So the stance I'm taking on this issue is just to to bring it from the bottom of the heap as an issue. It doesn't seem to be much of a priority for council and city at large, just because it's been unoccupied for 7 years, and there really hasn't been any. There's talk about it. It's been fizzling out, and I wanted to bring it back to light, bring it back to being a priority of ours in Lakewood because it's prime real estate. And I heard that there's plans, of course, but there hasn't really been much going on with it again. So I would see perhaps a park, something that the community could use, but ideally it would be a big company that could fill the hospital's shoes when it comes to rent money and the tax base of workers and people frequenting those
Thank you, Mr.
restaurants.
Mancini.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Schachter, the same question.
Thank you. We had a meeting last week at City Council about this issue. Casto and North Point Realty had to go back to the drawing board when Roundstone decided to leave and go to Rocky River. They came back to look at rents and to make sure they could get the financing. The financial market's really tight, which means they're not doing big projects. They're not lending out for $100 million projects. This is a $120 million project. So what they're going to do and what we're going to do is going to try and phase out the project. So we're going to start on the south end, get as much money we could get lent, or they're going to get as much money as they get lent to them, and hopefully by the time they start building, the financial markets situation will change where they'll be able to continue building. And now I would advise everybody to look at the City Council priorities for that side, where we published and publicized and made it a part of the agreement that some of the things that Lakewood City Council wants to see there, and like affordable housing and public space. So please look at the website. That is on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schachter. The second question I'm going to have you answer first, Mr. Schachter. Sure. What will you do to engage more young people in civic life?
The great thing, and sometimes the hard part about politics, it's a lot of times it's an opt-in situation. So you have to get people started early. I have a good relationship with the League of Women Voters. We're lucky that we're going to have Cindy Strebig joining council, who has pioneered and really spearheaded the high school engagement with mock votes and things like that. I have spoken to students. I go to elementary schools, and one thing I do, and I show up to all those meetings about parks where we invite the children to go and pick out their favorite thing, and that starts to engage them in the democratic process early on. So more of that engagement, more just showing up and bringing them in and showing them the results that their decisions matter.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini, the same question, please.
Yes, the sky's the limit with this one, really. I think, less about just for this instance, just getting people engaged in city politics is crucial at any age. So something I'd like to do if I were to be in council is go to every single door. It doesn't matter if they're a voter or not, and ask them what they need from city council, and encourage them, if they're not registered to vote, to get to vote. But attending rallies at schools, at elementary schools, high schools, telling them that this is something that affects your life deeply, local politics. And it's really something that you should follow, probably more than national politics, even though it screams the loudest. So engage with everybody on every level in a personal way.
Thank you. This next question will start with you, Mr. Mancini. What do you feel is the most critical decision facing City Council?
Well, it's the hospital, because it's my first issue. I think that as far as city, the ability for the city to make life better for its residents, that one's a big one. Just because it has the ability to affect so many people in a positive way if the right thing is put there and if it's used correctly. So it's directly in the city's responsibility to make that an available resource for residents. And there's issues with crime too. Being so close to Cleveland, there's a lot of spillover of crime perhaps that needs to be mitigated.
Thank you. Mr. Schachner.
Thank you. I find that the most pressing issue that council has dealt with and is continuing to deal with is our integrated wet weather improvement plan. We all experience a very rare high weather event where people's basements flooded, where for the first time for some people, and for some people after construction. So we have invested so far over $60 million in this project. The improvement plan involves a total of $150 million in investment, and the real decision points that City Council is going to have to make is, how are we funding this? We fund it partly through grants, we fund it partly through general obligation bonds, but it also has to do with water rates, and we have to figure out a way to not raise water rates and utility rates to a level that makes living in Lakewood unaffordable. So that is one of the most pressing issues that Council has to deal with.
Thank you. And now we have time for one more question. We'll start with you, Mr. Schachner. Do you believe in a woman's right to choose her reproductive health care? Why or why not?
Absolutely. Really, when you're talking about women's health care, reproductive right, miscarriage care, birth control, you're really talking about independence, and most of all, it's healthcare. People's lives are at stake with this. We're looking at Texas, where women are testifying about how they were left to bleed out in their cars because they didn't meet the standard that was set by the government to be in enough pain or hurt enough or dire enough to actually seek care. And it makes it more dangerous for a woman to be pregnant. I mean, my family experienced a situation where we had to get in D&C, and it was heartbreaking. And it would be even more heartbreaking if we weren't able to make that decision and get that health care, if we were being told what to do, if we had to go across state lines in order to find a way to keep my family healthy.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini.
Thank you. In the spirit of this being a city council race for Lakewood, I feel that this issue doesn't have to do with Lakewood. It's a state and a national issue. It's being voted on, and we'll see very soon what the people of Ohio decide, and then we'll go from there. So I want to focus on my three issues, being the hospital, empowering small businesses, and trying to decrease the property tax rate for homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. We will have you start with your closing statement, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Experience is a funny thing. How does one get it if not given the opportunity to gain it? What I bring to council is a willingness to learn, not only about the big ticket issues, but issues that affect everyday life for Lakewood residents. So my policy as a representative will be to go to the people, not the other way around. I've talked to individuals about issues like a crosswalk from a parking lot across the street from Barrio on Madison, noise complaints about Mary Arts, perceived rise in crime on Woodward and Westwood, and speeding, which is the most universal complaint, all of which seem to be either too petty or unknown by the current council. But I believe they require an equal amount of attention, and it's my opinion that city councilmen should care. I found myself in the know about these issues through real human interaction with my would-be constituents. Problems and issues are always coming and going, each one unique in their own right. Whoever is in office needs to learn how to solve them from the ground up in some cases, and even with experience, that can only take you so far. I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to pay attention. I want to serve you and your issues historically too small for the current council to even bother. Give me a chance to gain experience. Thank you.
Mr. Schachner.
Thank you. My entire goal my whole life was just to be useful. And to become useful, I sought out experiences to put me in the best position to do that. From after college, becoming a community organizer as AmeriCorps Vista, going to law school, working at legal aid for the U.S. Attorney's Office during law school, going and becoming a prosecutor, being in the civil division, being in juvenile division, being in the job and family services division, gaining all those skills, being in the felony division, and then going into a different area of city government, working for the administration of the city of Cleveland to learn how that side works and how you actually run a city. And my favorite thing is that the majority, like all my ideas are your ideas. That's where they come from. Like that crosswalk that's going across from Barrio that I committed $175,000 of ARPA funds to, that is currently in the capital budget plan that will be in there within the next 2 years. From a resident that thanked me when I knocked on her door because I got that vacant lot that's next door to her, that's owned by the city, mowed for the first time in years. The great thing about local government is that you know who your council people. You see me at the grocery store, you see me at the park, you see me at the pool. But most importantly too, I see you because I'm out there in the community with my daughter, going to the playgrounds, experiencing the things that you're experiencing. And I bring that experience to council. And I just want to make sure I give everybody my phone number, my email address. Cell phone is 216-714-2150. As my wife knows, you call me anytime. And it's just been a real honor to serve all you, and I hope I get to continue doing it for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you both very much, and hopefully you can stay afterwards and field some additional questions. Now, if we're going to have the candidates for school board come forward, we will put out the name placards right now. I would like to welcome the candidates that are here tonight for Lakewood School Board. And this time I'm not going to forget introductions. So you have 2 minutes for an introduction. We'll start on the right and work our way around to the left. So Ms. Beatty.
Okay, thank you very much for everybody for coming here tonight. Thank you, of course, to the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Commerce. They do tremendous work in this community and sometimes don't receive the recognition that they deserve. I've been on the Lakewood Board of Education now for 40 years. My husband, Bruce Beebe, and I lived in Lakewood for a long time with our children, Meg and Aaron, who graduated from Lakewood City Schools. I was an English teacher, and then an attorney, and then a school board member. And those have been the important parts of my life. I love being on the school board, and I'm here tonight to ask you to reelect me, allow me to continue to serve this community as I have in the past. The schools have had to make difficult decisions these last 4 years. COVID, but with an attempt to serve you and your children and keep them safe and make difficult decisions. The next 4 years are going to be focused on making up for the losses suffered because of COVID, of reviewing the best use of our new facilities in light of changing needs, of the need for more preschool education, the need for alternative education choices, and the need for more individualized programming and learning as we learn more every year about how children learn. We're looking to maintain the current financial stability of the district, of course, and to maintain and support the high-quality leadership team and teachers in the district. I want to continue to be a leader in that process. I look forward to serving you another 4 years. My goal is to bring my life experience.
Thank you, Ms. Beebe. Thank you. Mr. Callahan.
Thank you. I'd like to first thank the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event, and thank all the community members who are here this evening, as well as the candidates for this important forum. So when I ran for office in 2019, I sought to add representation of a parent with children in the district to the board, and to bring a perspective of a career public sector and parks and recreation professional. I'm grateful for the opportunity the community's given me to serve these past 4 years. I've been committed to working for our community and for our school district in a visible, approachable manner, with a wide lens, which I think is so important because of the many different needs, interests, experiences, and situations of families in our school district. My wife and I have 3 kids in the district, 2 in middle school and 1 in elementary. As a board member, even more than before, I've seen how dedicated our administrators, our teachers, our support staff are to their roles. I've worked collaboratively with my fellow board members through some challenging times while listening to our community and making decisions about what's in the best interests of all our students. Together, we hired a superintendent who's proven to be a very highly effective leader. In fact, we recently extended her contract. Our vision of a ranger guides us. It's a very effective guide. It's driven by community input with a lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and social and emotional learning, which are very important to this community. The district offers a very wide range of curriculum and programs to meet the needs of the community. And we engage our community through things like the Facility Study Task Force, which is currently underway, and will continue to do so on matters of significant impact. Lakewood's unique in that our recreation services are a function of a school district. And over the past several years, the board has taken a close look at recreation and has made organizational changes therein and worked on matters of mutual interest with the city as well. Strong recreation services are very important to our community. I look forward to the continued conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark Sutton.
Good evening. Good evening. Is it on? Just press 1 so it goes red. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Good evening. Thank you to the League and to the Chamber of Commerce. I have been an audience member of this for years. It's very different to be sitting up here, and I'm very excited about that. And I want to thank, this is one of the things I love about Lakewood. We are a standing room only, gathering information to make the most intelligent voting decisions that you can make. And that's why I love Lakewood. I've lived here for 33 years with my incredible husband, Tom, who's standing in the back cheering me on. And we are the proud parents of Kathleen and Janelle, who attended and graduated from the Lakewood City Schools, K through 12. I have degrees and certificates from John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, and the University of Colorado. And I taught social studies in Garfield Heights in the 90s, and I have been teaching at Tri-C mostly at the Eastern Campus in sociology, American government, and the first year experience for the past 20 years. I've been active, so I am very passionate about education. I have been active in local politics and civic affairs for decades. I began volunteering with the Lakewood schools when I joined the 50-year committee to review the facilities and determine best space, best fit for our children's learning. And I know many of you in the audience because I have been part of the leadership team for school levies, bond issues, and several local candidate campaigns. I support the vision of a Lakewood school graduate. It includes concepts like empathy, growth mindset, and a global citizenship, among other things. And one of the most valuable dimensions of our children's education is the diversity that we have in Lakewood and that they all bring to our classrooms. All families and children should feel welcome in Lakewood. Our children need to be supported, taught, and challenged in a safe environment.
Thank you, Ms. Clark-Sutton. And now we have Ms. Dotman.
Right, thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, the League and Chamber of Commerce, for inviting me. My name is Lisa Dotman. My husband and I both grew up in Lakewood. We went to Lakewood schools, and that is a big reason why we chose to stay and raise our families here. I am a teacher, and 3 of my 3 children are currently enrolled in the district. And this allows me to see how those policies that are being implemented affects our children, not only as a parent, but also as a teacher. My teaching experience includes 7 years at Milkovich Middle School in Maple Heights, and currently I teach for Ohio Connections Academy. In Maple Heights, I was also able to serve as a union building representative affiliated with the Ohio Education Association. I am an active volunteer at the Hayes PTO, a member of the executive board. I've had the pleasure of facilitating parental engagement both during the school day and at after-school functions. And being able to collaborate with parents and school staff and administration is key to success in education. For many in the community, declining enrollment is a concern. Often the first exposure our families have to the district is through the Community Recreation and Education Department. This entity is very important to our community. It should provide both academic, athletic, and creative outlets for our entire community, not just our children. Although many young families that is their first engagement with the schools, and it's where they start to build relationships and invest in our community. It's really important to continue to seek community feedback with additional programming that will engage families, build relationships, and keep our enrollment strong. Special education students must also be given the same access to a quality education as the rest of the student body. Too often, families are left feeling unseen and seek other options. We need to support our families by empowering our schools and to be advocates for our students. We also want to continue our excellent curriculum, which promotes a culturally responsive teaching, and this teaches our children to be empathetic, compassionate, and reflective. Thank you for your time. I hope to earn your vote in November.
Thank you, Ms. Doppin. Ms. Hindi.
Yes, hang on. It's funny if the technician can't turn on the microphone. Thank you to League of Women Voters, Chamber of Commerce for this forum. Most people who know me know that my main component, but not the only component of my campaign, is proposing restoring the music and phys ed time in the elementary schools, recently cut by more than 60 and 50% each. Not only supporting this now, but also being more diligent about any possible cuts to this extreme degree to any program in the future and more transparency with the community. At a time of declining enrollment, attacking one of the most revered programs in the state seems careless. And of great concern are the long-term effects of this assault. Was any consideration made about losing 6 years of education in music and the effect to the high school programs, or the same with phys ed in regards to sports? At all levels, our students are given electronic devices instead of books. There is an ever greater concern about screen time at the elementary level, and we just severely reduced 2 of the 3 classes that require them to turn them off. All of that said, Lakewood schools have many amazing things: a curriculum that meets and exceeds the needs for every student, extracurricular activities for everyone, an athletic program that teaches so much more than just sports, a fine arts program with incredible diversity, a career tech program with students winning in their specialties at national levels, and of course, the performing arts. There are many concerns for those of us in Lakewood. The appropriation bill in Congress, dwindling population both in city and schools, safety in our schools, and I'm sure that we will discuss that more tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Hindi. Mr. Kula Saker.
lights on. My name is Ravi Kulasekara. I am a 7-year Lakewood resident. I have not been part of the school system, even though I have 2 daughters, one who went to school in the Summit County city schools, and one who actually could be going to the Lakewood School District. The reason I started to consider running for school board is some of the reasons that Ms. Hendy here mentioned, is that I noticed a lot of parents not happy with what was going on with the school system, and they were, the people that I talked to, got the feeling that the parents were left out of some of the decision-making processes or were not involved in a way that was transparent and, just. So my goal is to bring parental, involvement into schools much more than we are doing so right now. I mean, the school board cannot operate under, echo chamber, making decisions for parents. That may be difficult at times, but the parents have to have the final say in what goes on with their children's education, because we send kids to school for them to learn. If there's no learning that's occurring, and if you look at I've been looking at some of the data for graduation rates and enrollment rates. I mean, the children are being moved from the Lakewood City schools to private schools, who have had a tremendous increase in enrollment, and there's waiting lists going on there. We need to change that, and I think to change that, you need some people in the board with a different mindset. People who think differently, and I have a PhD in physics. I have taught many grade levels, all the way from high school, college to medical residence. So I believe that I have the knowledge and the ability to make this happen for Lakewood schools to be as great as they are right now, even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Warner.
They gave us the tricky ones down at the end here. Thank you to everyone for being here this evening. It's great to see so many community members out, and thank you to the League and the Council for hosting this forum. I'm Martha Warner, and I decided to run this year for 2 reasons. One, I am the parent of a 2.5-year-old and a newborn who is thankfully quiet at this moment. And I believe that our board needs greater representation of parents with young children. We're in it for the long haul with the district. My youngest son will graduate in 2041, which let that sink in. And we have specific needs and perspectives as we navigate preschool, out of school time, enrolling our kids in school for the first time. And the decisions in front of the board today are the ones that will affect our children for years and years to come. And so we want, we're here to set our children up for academic, professional, and personal success. I also have deep experience in education. My life's work, my career work is about figuring out how to make education systems work for all students. And with nearly 15 years of experience working with and within these systems, I have a deep understanding of the opportunities and challenges that districts face. I've worked in research, policy, strategic planning, human resources, finance, and stakeholder engagement. And so I'd be honored to bring this set of experiences to the board. And as a prospective board member, there are 3 priority areas that I'd really like to focus on. The first is protecting what is great about Lakewood schools. There is so much to celebrate in our schools. It's the reason that my husband and I live in Lakewood. And I hear from so many graduates about the ways that they have felt supported as people and as learners. They've been able to explore multiple interests, and that they have been set up for futures of success. And those are the things I want for my kids and for all kids. The second area is to continue to expand that experience, because it is not universal. I see it in our data, and I also hear it as I talk to parents in the community. And finally, I like to focus on how our district schools and board partner together with community members.
Thank you. Ms. Young.
Hi. Is it on? It is. I'm Ami Young, and I'm going to do my teacher thing. I taught before I was a mother, and I'm married to a veteran teacher that teaches in Cleveland schools. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to teach you, and then I'm going to teach you, and then I'm going to remind you if I have time. My campaign is about flexibility, inclusion, and opportunity for all of our community members. This grows out of somewhat obvious with the inclusion. What's not obvious is the reason I'm not speaking off a script is because I'm dyslexic. I can't read off of paper, and I cannot write my notes. I can't read my notes. So I'm sitting up here, I didn't ask for permission to use my devices. So I'm going to probably miss things, and I'm doing this off my head. I am the mother of 5 children, all born male, one of them currently identifying as non-binary. My eldest, William, here is in the front row, and was introduced as your non-incumbent candidate for mayor. He graduated from Lakewood High School last year with his bachelor's degree from Cleveland State University that he earned magna cum laude, completely covered by Ohio's College Credit Plus program. He started college in 7th grade, as so far 2 of his younger brothers. My 11th grader at Lakewood High School is on track to have his Bachelor of Science in Forensic Accounting awarded in May. And his little brother, who is a virtual 8th grader at Franklin School of Opportunity, where my 11th grader also attended for middle school, is already 12 credit hours in, 13 in progress, into a grades 4 through 9 teaching certificate at age 13. He wants to follow in his dad's footsteps. I also have a 5th grader and a 2nd grader in Lakewood schools, and we have had at least 1 child enrolled since William was in pre-K at Lincoln. I was involved in the Phase 3 project and helped make the case for keeping 7 elementary schools using my sociology skill set that I developed at Case Western Reserve, where I have my bachelor's in psychology and sociology focused on development, and my sociology master's.
Thank you. Now we're going to start the question and answer period. We had a lot of great questions submitted by the audience, so we'll get through as many as we can. And we will start with Ms. Clark Sutton on the first question. Last spring, the district replaced its longstanding elementary specials schedule with the new schedule, resulting in less music, less PE, more art, and the introduction of weekly STEM and digital literacy classes. What is your position on this change?
I have 1 minute, right?
Yes, 1 minute for answers.
Excuse me. So I am on record as attending a school board meeting and supporting the initial recommendation by the collaborative committee for trying this change. Because of my experience with district committees, that we do things very thoroughly, that we ask people, that we do thorough research. I've had some additional conversations since then, and I think it's worth revisiting. Some parents are very happy with the variety at the elementary level and that their kids get to do something different every day. There are other kids who are struggling to retain the information when they get music once a week or they get STEM once a week. And so I think that there are a series of lot of conversations that have to happen with many stakeholders about the school day, about our curriculum, and how it's delivered.
Thank you. Ms. Dotman.
Right. So as a graduate of Lakewood, I understand how ingrained the music program is just generally. And my initial reaction was certainly like, this is terrible, what are they doing? But really as a parent, I think it's like you're doing too little. You're trying to please everyone, and in the end, you'll please no one. The way that it was before, for those of you who do not know, music was full year. PE was only 3/4 and art was 1. And thinking back on it now, it's concerning that PE and making sure our kids are active all year wasn't the thing that they were doing. But I agree, I would like to revisit, and I think it's important for students to have experience with different specials and not just music, not just a little bit of art and not just PE, but to make sure it's a part of their day.
Thank you. Ms. Hindy.
I'm not sure you have to ask me that question, but ditto. How it was handled by the board, in my humble opinion, was poorly. It seemed like a snap decision. I know, because my wife's part of the music department, that there were actually meetings where our superintendent yelled at the district music teachers that they better get on board and be quiet and do your job. That happened more than once and with more than one administrator. So I think intentions were good. I really do think intentions were good, but it was poorly, poorly done. And I am a fan of expanding our elementary school days and then all of the specials can have double the amount of time they have right now, and we'd be all happy again. But this district is a music district, and that's what makes us special.
Thank you. Mr. Kulisaker.
I did all the time. So I actually sat through many of the school board meetings, and I can be quiet when I want to be, and listened to many parents and experts come in and explain why cutting the music and arts program was a bad idea. And I think if you look at the science, and I'm a scientist, so I can, quote this for you. Music and art in the elementary school years help build cognitive skills in children. So cutting that was not a scientifically based decision, and I don't know where the experts came from, but the experts I heard who came from the Cleveland State University and many other places, including some of the teachers from the Lakewood School District, was very clear that was a bad idea. And it was not, it was basically just ignored. So there was something that was done that was not, the parents were not asked properly either, and we won't get into that in
Thank
detail,
you.
but
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Ms. Warner.
I think as I followed this issue with a lot of interest this past spring, and then also talked to parents then and now about it, I just hear over and over again this value of our children having a really comprehensive, robust education that is not just reading, writing, and arithmetic, but is also the specials in the day. And I know that there are always tough decisions that the board is going to have to make, and that there's going to be no decision that everyone is going to agree with 100% of the time. I think that the thing that have come out of this hearing from folks reflecting on is really about how we solicit community member engagement. Sort of the decision itself aside, knowing how many parents and students felt unheard and that their voices were ignored, I think feels really challenging to me and a place for the district to improve. And it's never a perfect process, and so I just think that there may be some lessons learned for us to use going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Young.
No, is that? Okay, sorry. It's not as obvious. In addition, I'm adding on to a little bit to what Ravi said. I study neuroscience, social neuroscience, and everything in developmental social neuroscience tells us how important music is to human development from the earliest stages. I do agree that we need to bring back more music. I've also followed along with project-based learning through my husband getting trained on that when he's a science and engineering teacher in Cleveland, and he was the last remaining founding teacher for Design Lab Early College High School, which was a project-based learning team taught high school. And the way I believe that we need to be doing STEAM. We need to have it woven throughout the day, every day. So it's science, technology, engineering, art, and math, every part of the day. And if we were doing that, then we wouldn't have to, STEM isn't a thing that happens in this one part of the time. I'm a medieval recreationist. There's so much engineering, and there's so much technology that predates 1600 that we could be bringing into these kids. And music is engineering too.
Thank you. Ms. Beebe.
Got it. Okay. I believe in allowing the experts in education, and particularly in pedagogy, to design curriculum. So let's start with that the redesigning of elementary school specials started with a committee of administrators and teachers talking about curriculum and about the fact that elementary schools, and I agree with Ms. Hendy over here, we could use more time in the elementary school. We have shorter elementary school days, and one of the things that we need to look at is extending that day. But given the time that we have to work in, and the fact that we were dealing with teachers and administrators who deal with elementary education all the time, who recommended to us as a school board that we look at expanding certain other specials, And as I looked at that list,
Thank you.
think about digital learning. Okay,
Mr. Callahan.
thank you.
Thank you. I like to focus on two things with regard to the elementary specials. Is it best for kids from the wide lens that I referenced before of a board member? And when I look at everything gained, I conclude yes. Dedicated STEM, year-round art, year-round PE, library science with digital literacy, and we maintain music. All of that takes a strain off of teachers who were pressed to get those topics in while progressing through core subject areas. The reports that I hear from teachers and administrators is that so far the schedule is working well. And I want to shift to a second item, and that is the focus on the process. As Ms. Beebe referenced, we saw a co-facilitated teacher and administrator working group that came to a consensus of our best and brightest minds from both the teaching and the administration ranks. They worked really hard on this. So I've supported it. I realize that we do need to continue to monitor it.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. I think this next question is an appropriate follow-up, and we will start with Ms. Hendy on this one. How do you plan to engage parents in the community in the decision-making process?
Well, my first and most important word is transparency. I think the special situation showed that we are lacking sometimes in transparency. I could disagree with Mr. Callahan on some things, but that would not be appropriate today. My mom was a single mom. I was raised in Lakewood, Ohio. She couldn't go to PTA. She had to take time off of work to come to concerts. We need to, in my humble opinion again, at Lakewood schools, focus on the kid and the parent who just can't meet those PTO meetings and all those things. How do I plan on doing it? Again, neighborhood response. For me, it's like get together for ice cream if you want to, but more importantly, the school reaching out to the parents and kids in need, and they don't do it now.
Thank you. Mr. Kulisaker.
I think we all need to recognize that parents are often the best advocates for their children's education and well-being. And when school boards are not transparent with parents about their children's education, that builds some mistrust. And that's what's going on here. And this is the reason why you see 10 people sitting at the desk vying for 3 positions. Things could have been done differently. And I heard many places where the parents themselves at board meetings suggested some things that were really good, which I thought was feasible. And I disagree that the board has the better view of things, because I think the parents have a better view of their kids. And I think we should have done that a little differently, and being more transparent, like Ms. Sandy said here, is the way to go.
Thank you. Ms. Warner.
So when I think about doing stakeholder engagement, I think about making sure that we have clarity, everyone has clarity about the process, how input and feedback will be used, where the decision-making rights lie, and also communicating back what folks are hearing when they solicit feedback. I think there's a lot of power to leverage in institutional relationships like our PTAs, but I also know that not everyone can make every meeting. I know that I have yet to attend a parent meeting at my son's daycare. And so I think it's really important to look at who is responding and not, right? Understanding, are there particular demographics of parents that or families or students that we're hearing from, and those that are not? And that is an important part of any type of stakeholder engagement process, to make sure you're really hearing from a broad swath of people and not the loudest voices in the room.
Thank you. Ms. Young. I don't think so.
I'm missing the one that had the push button. Thank you. Okay, so I'm a sociologist. So my first answer, my default answer, I see everything through a sociological lens. Do a well-designed, actionable survey. But failing that, because we don't have a great track record with that in our district, unfortunately, I would like to see more of what what I've seen is being successful in engaging the community in my children's school. Things like trunk or treat. You get the community to show up. Step one, build those relationships. We can't trust each other if we don't interact with each other in person, face to face, full context body language. We've been doing too much through the screens and not enough with the eye contact. We need to build more opportunities for our community members to engage with each other as human beings, to build that trust and build that engagement. That's step one. Then we can move on to having these difficult conversations, as I've learned to host through the certificate in conflict resolution that I just finished.
Thank you. Ms. Beebe.
Thank you. We do make, and the schools make, constant efforts, I think, to reach out to parents. And some of the greatest successes of the time I've been on the board have been community efforts, the 50-year committee, the current facility study commission, study task force. And those have been highly successful. But you have to remember as well, school boards represent all of the parents, not just the engaged and passionate music parents or the engaged and passionate science parents, whatever. You're representing all of the parents in the community. And you're also trying to work with your employees who you hire, and hopefully we will always in Lakewood be able to hire the best teachers and to use that expertise to come to the best solution for the best answer to whatever issues we're dealing with.
Thank you. Mr. Callahan.
Thank you. I would like to first just recognize our superintendent, Maggie Nitwicki, for her ongoing forum, the superintendent's Listen and Learn sessions. She's a really effective communicator herself, is very approachable, and for anyone in this room who hasn't met her, had a conversation with her, I encourage you to reach out. We sometimes joke on the board about how does she make time for everybody who does seek out a meeting with her or time with her or a call with her. So she certainly is visible. I would also add that as a school board member and as a parent of 3 kids in the district, I too am a visible board member and will continue to be approachable and available for conversation on this and any other topic of the district. But it is also important for us to engage with communication experts. I think the board shares one of the competencies of the vision of a ranger, of growth mindset, and I do think that moving forward, engaging with communication professionals more is something that we can do as a district as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark-Sutton.
I think there are three different parts to our community in terms of who is engaged. It is our students, it is the parents, and it is the people who live in Lakewood who don't have children in the system ever or anymore. And so I think when the question is how do we involve community in decision-making or in participation in school events and activities, I would go back to my experience on the 50-year committee. One of the amazing things that I learned and that we did in that process was engage the community. We had meetings in every single elementary building. At the time they were 10, and we listened and we researched and we sifted through information and we listened again, and we kept inviting people back and they kept coming. And when they couldn't come to the high school, we went to their elementary school.
Thank you. Ms. Dotman.
So I think just like we teach our children in a variety of ways, we need to engage parents in a variety of ways. I think surveys are great when they're meaningful surveys, and I think many of us in here probably have gotten that before, where it's one question, you're like, wait, what did I just answer here? And then you have a weird special schedule. Or making sure that parents can come, if they can't come during the school day, that you have those after-school options also, whether it be right after school or later in the evening, and just making sure that there are options available so everyone is included.
Thank you. With the third question, we will start with Ms. Warner. The school board oversees the Lakewood Recreation and Community Education Department and appoints the Lakewood Public Library Board. What is your vision for both?
Only a minute. So I know that this is something that is on the mind of a lot of community members. I will say, and understanding that the library and the rec department are also an important institutions and part of the social fabric of our community, and ones that not just school-age children and their parents engage with, but all of us engage with. I think that having children who are too young to yet be in the rec department, this is still a place that I feel like I am learning and feeling out. And so to me, this calls for a really broad community needs survey that's really, really robust so that we make sure that our offerings are meeting the needs of our folks. And I think the same goes for the library, is really deeply understanding what the community is looking for and understanding whether or not these programs are meeting them and what needs to change and coming up with that kind of plan. And so that is what I would like to see.
Thank you. Ms. Young.
Can you hear me now? Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes.
My brain just glitched.
The school board oversees the Lakewood Recreation and Community Education Department and appoints the Lakewood Public Library Board. What is your vision for both?
And great. So it's funny because I just had a great conversation with our building facilities people after I showed up at the school board meeting at Garfield that was in the lower level and the elevator was locked. So I couldn't even get in. So I have had ongoing conversations with our facilities management, and I'm trying to bring more accessibility in. I also was at Lakewood Pool this weekend and got during open swim while the event was going on in the stadium, and got to test out the new pool lift that they got since the pandemic that was not in existence the last time I was there for a PTA event. So I am very glad to see there's so many improvements going on with increasing inclusion and accessibility in these programs. And I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't put my name in to be on the library board, because I love our library so much that I showed up to do my youngest child's summer reading check-in the day he was born at home. So.
Thank you. Ms. Beebe.
One of the great things about Lakewood is the fact that we do have this interconnection between the city and the schools. And so we have the joint effort of the city and the schools on the part of the recreation department, and then we have the city, the schools and the libraries. And we work together, and you know, I think the biggest thing is not only that we work together to improve it, to make it better. And you can always accept feedback from people and say, sit down, city, schools together, the library board, which we appoint. We're always looking to say, these are the problem solvers. We know we're not going to go through life with no problems, but we're looking for people and for ways to solve problems, to make broader programming in the rec department. Colleen's idea, or summary of 3 elements. Those are the people we're serving: the young, the old, the people who use.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Callahan.
Thank you. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, that our recreation services, it's a unique situation that it's a function of the school district. But we have taken a close look at the recreation department, and the director of district activities and events position, I think, has allowed for alignment. And I think that's been a very important change, and allowed for alignment of recreation department and our high school and middle school athletics programs. What it's also done, and Mark is in his first year, in that role, or just finishing up, I should say, moving into his second year. But it's allowed us to really take a deep dive there, and to build on relationships with city and with other entities throughout the community that have been very important. Mr. Walter did do a fairly robust survey and is working through the results there. And I would also say that the district's strategic plan has a significant amount of dedicated space to recreation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark-Sutton.
So it is a unique situation that our rec department and our library are part of the school board's responsibilities. Excuse me. But I think it's part of what makes Lakewood unique in the way that things already work across. We go to the library, and they extended many years ago when we agreed to pass a levy for them. They said, we'll open on Sundays if you pass this levy. And that was, my kids were in elementary school. You were probably off in college somewhere. And it has maintained that ever since. And so we are good stewards of our facilities, and we're good stewards of our staff, and we're good stewards of our finances. And so, but we do need some cooperation and communication across lines between the city and the school board, and just assessing what our needs are in all of those different facilities.
Thank you. Ms. Dobman.
I don't have enough time for this. So I would be willing to bet that most people do not know that the Board of Education actually approves the library board. I think communicating that is important. I think there are things that happen at the library, like did anyone know there was a book sale in the basement? Because until like 2 weeks ago, I didn't know that this existed. And why not? Like, why is that not something that are very inexpensive? It would be a great thing for our kids to have access to, or the adults in our community have access to. But on top of that, like making sure that there are spaces for teenagers. We don't have a lot of places for our teens to go, and a library would be a great place for that. Talk to me later about the recreation department if you'd like, but I will say within the last year, there's certainly been a lot of improvement. My kids are really active in sports, and that has definitely been a concern of mine for a long time.
Thank you. Ms. Hindi.
I'm just going to say ditto to how Schwelty did.
Oh, thank you.
I can't top it. I do want to take a second, though. Mr. Callan and I were actually in the rec department years ago together, and now Mrs. Krogerman is doing an incredible job. She balances everything. It's like a juggling act. So the whole rec department, just want to say thank you to them for making these things available. And some of my best days growing up were at the Lakewood Library, because my stepmother was a librarian there. And I do know the Dewey Decimal System if anybody needs to find out.
Thank you. Mr. Kula Saker, sorry.
It's okay. I think if I had to say that, next to in the academic arena, next to the music and everything else, I think reading should take another, the greatest position. And I think Lakewood has the greatest libraries ever. I mean, we used to be in the Cleveland district. We live very close to the new Madison library. It's excellent, and my kids always, wanting to go there. So I think we need to keep that position on, improve it. As far as the programs go, I mean, again, parental involvement on what programs are appropriate for what kids, opening up the program into different age groups, again, and then this kind of stuff could be discussed and then implemented. I think that, I think most of what I wanted to say was already said here, so I'm going to say ditto to everybody else, and then just, since I'm the last person to speak on that, I think we have a great program going on. I think we can continue to improve on it. And provide the people with an excellent recreational and library service.
Thank you. And due to time constraints, I think we only have time for one more question. This is from a Lakewood High School student who is currently enrolled in the AP African American Studies course. This student would like to know, what efforts will you make to ensure Lakewood maintains a strong, varied curriculum? Ms. Dotman.
So I think that is fantastic that Lakewood offers that. When I was in, I cannot remember if it was 10th or 11th grade, there was a new course called Human Rights and Conflict. I believe someone in the room probably also took it with me that year. This was the first time I learned that Japanese internment was a thing, that it had happened, and that is embarrassing. It is really important that we teach our kids real history, and not to feel guilt about it, but because, like, with our growth mindset, if we do not face these things, history will definitely repeat itself, and we're going to make those same mistakes. We learn from them. They're important. So it's important not only for those reasons, but to make sure that our students are ready to go into the world. They are going to colleges where they're learning real things, and it's important that we arm our kids with that bit of knowledge.
Thank you. Ms. Hindi.
I lost my notes, but I'm incredibly proud of Lakewood City Schools, how we've been adding classes for this. We need to figure out a better way to attract more students and a more variety of students, more diversity of students. But yeah, I mean, amazing, isn't it? We didn't have those classes when I went to school. There you go. So anyways, I lost my notes. I'm just going to say, I just want to applaud all the folks who are involved in getting those classes. It's the AP history, it's the Native American, it's trending now, it's off the top of my head, I don't go to school. But check it out. Check out our course program. It's very, very good.
Thank you. Mr. Kula Saker.
So I come from a country that has a 3,000-year history, so I would say, very interested in history. It's really, really important that people are taught history and not leave anything out, because there are some parts of history that can be uncomfortable, and that's okay, because then, if we learn that, we don't repeat that. So I think it's very important for students to learn a wide range of, historical events and facts that they can learn from, and, some maybe, is good and some bad, but I think we shouldn't differentiate that. We just teach history as it is. And I think Lakewood's doing a good job, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Warner.
I think maybe one of my most proud moments as a Lakewood citizen was when I learned that we were introducing the AP African American history class, and I was really jealous that I didn't have the opportunity to take that as a student. Look, I think that this is a moment in this country, in our state, where there are a lot of decisions that are being made at the State House level about what is being taught in schools or not. But I also think that there's a lot of room for a board to maneuver between what is happening at the state level and what our community values, which is the honest teaching of history. And so as a board member, I think it's really important that we, or as a prospective board member, that we are paying attention to the moves that are coming at the state level so that we are sitting between and protecting the quality of education that is taught in this city, because that really matters to us.
Thank you. Ms. Young.
Well, I have a little bit of a leg up on this since my son William has been on the anti-racism task force in Lakewood since it started. And so I have a beyond just the schools perspective of this. He was a high school student when he was invited into being on that. And one of the things that I've heard at gatherings that we've done to have more inclusion in races across the ethnicities in Lakewood is how sad it is that so many of our teachers are white. There aren't very many teachers of color. So one thing to do is to start raising awareness of the opportunity that the Ohio Federation of Teachers has out there for future teachers of color. There's no out-of-pocket expense. You can be, if you are a person of color interested in becoming a teacher, there is a program to help you get into the classroom. Also, increasing the interest beyond our students in these things so that their parents, who are our voters and could put pressure on our State House, as Martha said, they can be getting in and saying, no, we need this. We need to know about this. Our children need to be prepared.
Thank you. Ms. Beebe.
Thank you. I'm tremendously proud of Lakewood High School. I should say I roomed with a girl from Lakewood back when I was in college, and I was tremendously jealous of the fact that she went to this wonderful school, and I graduated from a little rural school in northern Ohio. But more than that, we have almost 200 classes at Lakewood High School, serving a wide, diverse group of kids that have the opportunity to study everything from culinary arts to Chinese, Native American history, Black American history. We have a history department that offers specials in things like, guess what, women's history. It offers an opportunity for every child to follow their love and passion, and that's the thing I'm proudest of.
Thank you. Mr. Callahan.
Thank you. We have some of the best in our superintendent, our assistant superintendent, and our director of teaching and learning, curriculum experts in education. And on top of that, our teachers are second to none. Piloting AP Black History and the overall interest in that course is really worth celebrating. I think what's also worth noting, and well, I certainly support expansion of curriculum wherever possible. I think what's also worth noting here is West Shore Career Tech and how that program is a part of that expansive, wide-ranging curriculum in preparing our students for whatever that next phase of life might be. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark Sutton.
So in maintaining in how to maintain a strong, varied curriculum, we have to be intentional. Lakewood schools are excellent, K-12, pre-K-12. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens by careful stewardship by the board. It happens by incredibly dedicated people at every kind of staff position in the district. And we have to protect what we have and push back a bit on the state. I really liked Martha's paragraph. I could just write it for myself. But that's the job of the board, is to find what the community wants, needs, and expects, and then communicating that and holding the line when outside interests and outside pressure and people who don't understand what we value here in Lakewood want to get in our way. We, as the board, if I am elected to the board.
Thank you. And now we will proceed with closing statements. You have 2 minutes, and this time we will start at my left. Ms. Young.
I thought I was going to get the question first last time. So, flexibility, opportunity, and inclusion. I hope that you've heard how I've woven that into my answers throughout tonight. I believe that we need the flexibility and we need to be flexible to meet these challenges and that might be coming at us from the State House. We may not have any choice but to cut programs due to funding issues. How can we still maintain that spark in our children? How can we grow that? Even if money isn't there, we are such a community full of resources. We need to be resourceful and be pulling people in. And part of that, as I'm looking at the time and hoping that my husband has done the bedtime routine with our younger children who are supposed to be in bed in 8 minutes, is recognizing that who's not in the room right now. I know that it's hard for Martha sitting next to me, hearing her baby fussing out in the hallway. A reason that I haven't been at school board meetings a lot over the years, and I haven't been as active in the PTA as I wanted to be pre-pandemic, was because my kid's bedtime starts at 8 o'clock. I need to be home for them. So how are we including parents of young children when the meetings run across their bedtimes? So one thing I'd love to see, if I get on school board or not, is I'd like to see the public comment period first, so that we can watch on the live stream the stuff that's not interactive. But that interactive part, put it first so we can get our kids to bed. And maybe offer a potluck so that we can have our kids fed and then have our say and hear what our neighbors are saying before we go home. That's the kind of flexibility I'd love to see our municipal government providing, and building relationships with us and connecting us in so that we can share our interests, like my love of the Rick Riordan Presents books, by the way, fantastic books, all by authors of color, that get people in and into the stories and sharing their stories so that we can build and weave the most amazing epic tale of Lakewood ever.
Thank you. Ms. Warner.
Thank you so much again for your time and attention this evening. It is so clear to me, whether you are here or maybe watching later, or you're someone I've engaged with in conversation outside this, how passionately we care about our schools and our community. Whether we have students in the schools right now or not, we know that these are important institutions and a bedrock of the social fabric of our community. And I think what I've heard tonight, as I've heard so often, right, is that there is so much that is great about our schools. There's so much that we love and want to protect. It is why my husband and I chose to live here, to raise our family here. And it was truly an active choice for us. He said, oh, maybe we should look at some other suburbs. And I said, no, we're living in Lakewood or nowhere. Maybe on a boat in Lake Erie, but that's it. And I really want to celebrate the hard work that has gone into creating a system that is this amazing, whether it is our staff, our leaders, our community members, because it takes all of us to create something this amazing. And that's not to say that there isn't room to improve, that we can't make things better as the world changes, as we learn more, and to really build on those strengths. And so I think I really see the role of the board in helping set up systems, helping maintain those systems, helping build those systems with great community input. And so would love to bring my experience thinking about the education system specifically to continue to strengthen what we have together. And so thank you for, again, for participating, and I hope I will have earned your vote in November.
Thank you. Mr. Kulisaker.
I think it's very clear what people want. I mean, people want excellence in academics. They want parental rights and parental involvement. They want parents to have communication back and forth with the board. They want transparency. They want the board to have fiscal responsibility, because if you live in Lakewood, you know that the taxes are pretty high. So you want something in return for that money. And you want your kids to have a good learning environment. And I've heard tonight a lot about experts being coaching, the board and whatever they've been doing. Experts come in different shapes, colors, and forms. And I think on a board, we're a city that boasts of diversity, inclusion, and that stuff, which is great. But we need that diversity also on the board. We need expertise from different areas, not just people who have been in the education system or been in the school system, because we can all bring a different viewpoint into the board's process that will actually allow your children to have a better education and excellence in education, and actually have some learning, because education without learning is not helpful. And I think I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I thank you all for being here. And I hope that we can have some conversations and for us to earn your vote come November. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hindi.
All right, I'm not going to do the closing that I wrote down. I was searching around the internet, trying to get some ideas, and I saw a website that had the following words: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage, never quit attitude, essential components: character, competency, commitment, courage, cohesion, and communication. And I thought, boy, those are really cool words for the arts, except for they're on the West Point Athletic website. So I stole it. So I was going to tell you one of my pet peeves in Lake City Schools. I've been there for a long time. I worked there for 33 years, the auditorium manager. And I always said the auditorium is the ugly child, or stepchild of Lake City Schools. As all these renovations and things were going on, there was absolutely nothing done to the Civic Auditorium. Our last renovation was in 1993, and we spent about $250,000, but more than half of that we had to go out and fundraise for. Why am I saying this? Because I just noticed in my newspaper that we redid the baseball field this year at a tune of $749,000 plus, and it was all school funded. Guess what? The Civic needs some help. I'm not there. You can do it. So anyways, I will read this part. I believe that all of our board members are smart, well-seasoned in running the board, but right now, everyone is with one mind traveling down a one-way road. I think our school district would benefit from having more viewpoints on the board. Ultimately, we share the same goal of doing what is best for Lakewood students, but in order to uncover great ideas, there needs to be dialogue, differing viewpoints, and a willingness to listen. I'm asking for your vote so that I can be that person for you on the board, and I definitely have a different lens of what's there now.
Thank you. Ms. Dotman.
So as we all know, education is ever evolving. Every year I get a new group of students and they have different needs. And even my students from last year, as they go to their next grade, probably have different needs, right? We are constantly changing. Our school system is fantastic, but that doesn't mean that we don't need to react to how things are changing. It's important to continue those things, like improvements that we've seen in the rec department, improvement that we've seen even with collaboration with City Hall. When you talk about the fields, everyone heard about the fields, I imagine, and who was responsible. That was a lot of collaboration, not just between staff, student, parents, school board, but also the entire community. And it's important that we continue to keep the community in mind. Everyone can make our school board successful and our school system successful, so it's important that we continue to engage everybody and collaborate with everybody. So I do hope that you come to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to talk at any time, and I hope I can earn your vote this November. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark-Sutton.
You all have some work to do in the next 6 weeks. This is a pretty impressive panel of people, and you get to vote for up to 3 of us. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you to the League and to the Chamber for hosting this. This does not happen in all communities. And the turnout like this does not happen like this in all communities. And so I love Lakewood. I am passionate about public education. I believe that every child, every person, lifelong learning should be available, accessible, and inclusive for everyone. Meet our students where they are and help them grow. The vision of a Lakewood graduate that's now being sort of folded into the vision of a Lakewood educator and a Lakewood staff person are all part of that growth mindset of collaboration and communication, all these great buzzwords. When my kids went and graduated in 2015 and 2019, we didn't have that cool graphic. We didn't have those titles, but they got all that. They got collaboration and communication. And I want today's children, I want this young man in the front row to have what my kids had, and maybe a little better, because we're always trying to improve. We're all up here quite proud of the district that we are hoping to represent, but we all have different ideas of the things that we would tweak or modify or continue to edit and revise. But it's a collaborative process, it's a long process, and I would be grateful for your vote and the opportunity to serve on the Lakewood School Board.
Thank you. Mr. Callahan.
Thank you. Serving the past 4 years and on the board and having the opportunity to also serve as the current board president have really been an honor for me. And I will also add that a highlight of my life, not just my time on the board, was speaking at the 23 commencement at Lakewood High School, because I had the opportunity to just express the preparation that our students had and the environment in which they went to school and how they were so prepared for that next level, and how we welcome them and we present to them so much life experience, both through curriculum and through what they learn from their peers here. And if reelected, I'll continue to listen to our community and continue to celebrate that diversity, equity, inclusion, and protect what we as a community value so much. And I'll continue to celebrate that and to advocate for strong public education for all and against any threats to that. So I ask for your support as well this November. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Ms. Beebe.
Thank you. Boards of education have 2 duties, really. One is to hire the best possible superintendent and the best possible treasurer to guide the school district. And the second, to set policy. And in setting policy, we represent the ethical character of our community. It says a lot to me that you all are here, that this community turns out to look at their school board candidates and say yes or no, to look at what we've set up here, as Ms. Sutton said, to what would we tweak, where would we go? And sitting up here on this side, listening to the questions and the responses of this excellent panel of candidates here, there are ideas floating around there that come from this community that this board, that's what we do. We represent you. We listen and we represent the people in this community, whether they have children in the school district, are going to have children in the school district, or have never had children in the district. We represent you, and we do listen, and we want to listen. The public schools have been my passion my entire life. I believe in public education and what it offers to people in the ability to see people of different rank, of different class, of different interests, of different abilities, and to learn to live together. That's what makes democracy work, is the things that we learn in public education. Public education and public schools are the heart of democracy. Lakewood schools are the heart of this community. I want to continue to serve you and our community. Thank you all very, very much for coming. Thank you for the Chamber and the League of Women Voters. You do an excellent job, and I look
Thank
forward
you.
to answering your questions.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to echo what Ms. Beebe said. This has been an excellent panel of candidates, and on behalf of the audience, I would like to thank you for this wonderful discourse that we've had. Can we have a round of applause? And if everyone can just remain seated for just 2 more minutes, I'd like to introduce Dawn Ellis, the co-chairperson of the Lakewood League of Women Voters. She will have our closing remarks. Dawn?
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Hi, good evening. I am Dawn Ellis, co-chair, along with Valerie Gamertz-Fielder over there, of the Lakewood chapter of the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland. We've had a very informative night tonight, and I'd like to thank you all for being here. This forum has been videotaped, just a reminder, and it will be on the Chamber of Commerce website. I'd like to thank all the candidates for being here and for sharing their thoughts and concerns while asking for your vote. I'd like to thank our moderator, Maria Shin, for keeping us all on track. I'd like to thank, yes, good. I'd also like to thank the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce for being a great partner with the League on this event. And lastly, democracy is not a spectator sport, and I encourage you all to be as involved as your time and energy allow. The League welcomes members, and so does the Chamber. Ask anyone here with a badge or a button. Thank you all again, and that's it for me.